seminar is about leptin resistance. So let's start by some definitions. These nutrients need to be absorbed, but also converted in our intestines. And we have a whole organ, let's say, which is external to us, which are the microbiome that convert these nutrients into health-promoting substances. So this is the intestinal function, extremely important. We need to detoxify from various insults, from environment, from food, okay? So detoxification center is our liver. The metabolism is actually our economy to provide us with energy, okay, to do services. Okay, so we do a lot of processes in our body. And I divided these into two main types of services. First of all, we have those, we call them essential services, which provides survival to our body. And actually, these services are the central nervous system function. Yeah, we cannot stop the central nervous system. Is the cardiopulmonary, so we cannot stop our heart, we cannot stop our lungs from working. So these are definitely essential services. We have a lot of nervous impulses, muscle contractions, and fluid balances. We have a lot of pumps going on all the time to make sure that these are in place, and these we cannot stop, okay? And also temperature. Body temperature is something that we need to keep. So a lot of energy is used for these particular essential services. But there are other services in our body. We need to balance our hormones. We need to break down. So I went on to the right here, which we call the vitality services, thriving body. All right. We need to break down the stress hormones. We need to produce melatonin for sleep, detoxify, and also the importance of the intestinal function. So why I'm saying this? So basically, to orchestrate all this, we have two main things. We have hormones to communicate between organs, and we have neurotransmitters that actually are important in driving the nervous system and signals within the nervous system. Now, all these processes needs energy. So in terms of energy, we need to make sure that all the processes are provided with the right amount. Now, when the energy is low, then essential services in the survival mode is being provided. So energy goes only to the survival mode. So what is leptin? Okay, first of all, we mentioned hormones. Hormones are, of course, the communication between our organs. Now, leptin is produced in the adipose tissue. This particular hormone is basically telling our brain, okay, that we have enough energy. Okay? So leptin resistance is basically, there is a lot of leptin, which is produced by the adipose, telling the brain, should be telling the brain that we have enough energy, okay, and energy stores, but the brain does not interpret that signal, and it becomes resistant to leptin, okay? So the brain thinks that energy is low, although energy is high, okay, because there is a communication failure. And unfortunately, when there is this communication failure, then there is an increase in appetite and there is reduction in energy expenditure. So basically, the brain is saying, oh, there's not enough storage of energy. Let's stop any service and we can only give energy towards the survival mode. Okay, and this would result in the final outcome, which would be weight gain. So when leptin is communicating well with our brain, energy is good, and therefore repair happens, okay? And fertility is supported, and also our daily functions run smoothly. So we feel the energy, we feel that we can provide that energy. Unfortunately, when leptin resistance occurs, then we do have issues with repair. So repair function will be suppressed, and also fertility is not supported, and energy being low, appetite increases. This would result in weight gain. So basically here, weight gain is not about a specific signal. It's about the loss of a communication between our systems and the brain. In terms of insulin resistance, is mainly a signal problem. In terms of leptin resistance, is more of a trust between our organs and the brain. And this happens through what we call the pituitary, the gland. The hypothalamus will stimulate the pituitary to produce various hormones so that we regulate metabolism. One of them is, for instance, thyroid. And that's why with leptin resistance, in most cases, we have hypothyroidism. Okay, so because if the brain is not producing the right hormones, then we try to reduce the metabolism. If we reduce the metabolism, we don't use energy, okay? But still the brain is trying to get more energy towards our body. So it is a complex system, and it is all driven by this system of hypothalamus, pituitary, activation then eventually of adrenal, and lack of thyroid. Can we do something about it? Okay, so yes, we can recover from leptin resistance, but we need to do it in the right way. And it is really phase. We have to have different phases. Okay. First of all, we need to stabilize the blood sugar. Then we need to take care of the inflammatory responses and cortisols, the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. Then we have to make sure that the brain starts understanding these communications as well. So we have to make sure there is a good pattern. So pattern recognition. So for instance, we try to eat at the same time. There is the same kind of pattern in the eating habits, the eating time, type of eating, etc., etc. And then we start recalibrating the system. So there are specific lifestyle medicine protocols. One way how to stabilize signals is, of course, we have to do low GI carbohydrate intake, a bit of more fiber, okay? And the most important is regular meals with leptin resistance, okay? Regular meals and the same pattern, because we need to get that trust back, that communication back with our brain, okay? And of course, because of hunger, because the brain is telling us to eat more, it's good to have a little bit more increase in the protein per meal so that we increase the satiety. And do not fast if there is leptin resistance, because fasting works against getting back the stabilization of the signals. Okay. Then we need to support the HPA axis, which is like the sympathetic nervous system, the flight and fight mode. So we need to make sure not only the food, but also the rhythm of sleep should be taken care of. We need to make sure that also the type of exercise is prescribed well. It is not ideal to do HIIT exercises if leptin resistance is, because that would increase the cortisol spikes. And therefore, we cannot retrain the brain to communicate well, all right, in terms of leptin. So by week 3, we'll need to start build sensitivity, okay? And the best way to do that is by prescribing exercise to individuals with leptin resistance, mostly the resistant training. And maybe here Meti can help me explain a bit more about the best ways how to exercise under such conditions.
100%. So thank you, Professor Greg, for allowing me to intervene and contribute to this webinar, first of all. So guys, in terms of, let's say, focusing on resistance training in this case, we need to aim more or less to train 3 to 4 times a week, doing movements or exercises where you utilize multiple muscle groups, meaning it is valid to do exercises where, for example, you work on your shoulders or you work on your arms or maybe specific parts of your legs. But what we want to do here is focus on movements where you utilize multiple muscle groups. So doing exercises like squats, maybe you've heard of deadlifts as well. So where we might be using the lower body more than the upper body, but we want to use multiple muscles from the lower body or upper body rather than trying to isolate specific parts and bits. The more muscle recruitment you have, you tend to build more muscle. And as Prof. Greg was mentioning before, on the metabolism side, the more lean muscle you have, the more lean muscle you build, the higher your metabolic rate will be. So you'll be more energy efficient. And in this case, when it comes to the leptin side of things, it will help contribute towards this. But we're saying so 3 to 4 times a week of big movements like squats, deadlifts, etc. Now, if maybe you're new to exercise, we're not saying big in terms of heavy weights or really excessive, let's say, intensity. We're saying the pattern of movement. So it can be a squat with just the barbell or even body weight because you're still utilizing the, let's say, grander scheme of the muscles. What we want to try to, what I would say, avoid, we need some isolation movements to prepare for the bigger movements, but we need to focus on the movements which we do every day, like squats. Deadlifts, for example, are the best way to pick something up from the ground. So these are all functional movements. We're not talking about the athlete or how do you say high performance athlete movements, the functional daily movements which will improve your daily lives and how you carry out basic tasks like shopping or carrying things around, things like this. So that is what I would say to focus on generally. That's it for now, props. I'm not sure if someone has a question on this, or maybe I went too fast, or feel free to shoot.
Thanks for that intervention. Okay, so it's very important. It's very important, as Matti said, that if there is leptin resistance, exercise needs to be prescribed in a way to make sure that the exercise that is being done is activating again this reception of what the brain perceives as the amount of energy that we have. Of course, exercise would also help us to utilize more glucose, etc., etc. So, but the main part here is that we know that the muscle strengthening improves leptin responsiveness, okay, because it reduces systemic inflammation and also utilizes extra glucose in our system.
When we come to strength training, guys, it's important we focus on what we call progressive overload. Progressive in the sense that we build it up week after week. This doesn't mean you just increase randomly by 10 kilos or 10 reps or whatever. It needs to be designed systematically, as Prof. said. So it has to be prescribed according to the person, what goals they have, where they are at in their lives, do they have any limiting factors, etc. So progressive. And when we say overload, we don't mean over pushing or going high. What we mean by overload is that this week we put 10 kilos of resistance. Maybe next week or the week after we'll go for 11 or we'll go for 12. So it's progressive, it's structured, and it makes sense because we want the body in time to get used to bearing more load. This is what we mean by overload, not as in like how sometimes say information overload or excessive. We want it to be progressive and the body always building up slowly, slowly, slowly.
It's not about restricting diet it's about consistency. It's about patterns. It's about rhythm. Okay, we need to teach again the brain to understand this particular signal. Okay, so it's important to align meals with activity levels as well. Of course, one would need to see if there are any other conditions that needs to be considered, okay, such as PCOS or hypothyroidism, which hypothyroidism can be due to the actual leptin resistance and the pituitary function. Okay, and if somebody is looking at lowering weight, weight loss, okay, it's not the time to do weight loss. It will not happen if there is leptin resistance. Okay, what we need to do is stop weight gain. Okay, this is very important to understand because it's important to stop weight gain not by calorie deficiency, okay, to do calorie deficit, is to actually train the brain again about alignment of our meals with our exercises. So basically, in terms of tracking recovery in the first 2 weeks, there is reduced cravings. Then in the third week, there is a stabilization of the energy, and then we start the calibration. Okay, so basically here we are after, as I said, trusting the cycle again, making sure hormone credibility from the restoration of the brain's ability to believe in those signals. So my last slide, trust the system because compliance is key. Okay, it doesn't happen. What means is the outcomes doesn't change within a day. It takes time, but compliance is key and trust the system. So we have 15 minutes more to actually take some questions. If you need any information, we have a lot of information. There are 3 to 5 minutes articles on my LinkedIn